let me introduce you to Daniel Jones. Daniel was brought up in South Wales, and if you met him today, you'd think he was a pretty ordinary guy. But some of the things that had happened in his childhood and his school life had made a dramatic effect upon Daniel's life. And it meant that a number of years ago, he spent a few years almost like a recluse, hardly talking to anybody except for his immediate family. But then, one day, as he walked through the streets of Cardiff, someone passed him a book that was to change his life. Let's hear as Daniel picks up on that story.
Thank you, Steve. Before I tell you my story, I'd just like to tell you a little bit of what I do in the church now, 8 years on. I've learned how to use the sound desk. I'm very much involved with the video ministry, and I do lots of other things within the church. I've been on a couple of missions. I've been twice to Uganda, been to Israel, Malta, Ireland. I help here quite a lot. I take some of the older people shopping once a month, and you know, very active. You know, you may think that's pretty ordinary, but if I start at the beginning, you'll see, you know, that my life wasn't an ordinary life. When I was a child, I had asthma, and I suffered with dyslexia, which so I missed a lot of schooling. And when I was in school, of course, with my learning difficulties, I found that other children tend to bully me a lot. The teachers used to call me that I was stupid, I wasn't trying, because they didn't understand what dyslexia was all those years ago. And as I grew up, it left me feeling very insecure and shy, quiet, withdrawn, feeling unloved and unwanted, and started depression quite at an early age. At 18, I had a nervous breakdown and ended up in a psychiatric hospital for 3.5 months. I got married at the age of 30, and not even that lasted. I broke up after a few months, and that's when things really got bad for me. Then I shut myself off for 6 years after that, basically, hardly talking to anybody. I drifted through life. And about 8 years ago, I seemed to just come to the end of myself. I made a decision to leave Cardiff, and I just felt so desperate and alone and isolated. So I went out for a walk one day just to fill my days in. As I was walking through the streets of Cardiff, this man came up to me, handed me this book. Didn't say a lot, just handed me the book and walked away. And I carried on my walk. And I ended up into the castle in the city centre here. Sat down on a park bench, feeling I'll be honest, I felt like I wanted to kill myself. I was having suicidal thoughts. I thought there was no purpose to life. And I took this book out of my pocket, and on the top of it, it said, "Looking for a miracle," which made me feel more angry. I'll be honest with you, I felt much more angry at this because I was so desperate, and I remember kind of throwing the book down on the bench. As I was sitting there, I heard somebody call me by name, Daniel, and I looked around and there was nobody there at all. And I heard it again, Daniel, and still there was nobody there. And at this stage I thought I was going mad. I really have lost my mind. I'm hearing voices on top of all my other problems. Kind of heard almost like this voice coming from within inside of myself saying, "Daniel, if you will trust in me, if you will believe in me, stretch out your hands right now and take mine. I will heal you." Again, I thought I was going crazy, but in desperation I thought, what have I really got to lose you? And I didn't believe in God or nothing like that. All my life I hadn't. But I decided I was at my lowest point and I was going to reach out. And in a park, didn't care who saw me. But when I stretched out and just closed my hands, I had this most amazing sense of love that I have never experienced before. Overwhelming. And a sense of peace. And I actually felt as if all the years of torment and torture and depression literally leaving my body, as if it was coming out of the top of my head. And I remember starting to weep, cry. And after I stopped crying for a little bit, this sense of joy came over me and I started to laugh. And As I opened my eyes, I noticed the colour of the grass, which seemed brighter than it had ever been before. It just seemed so alive and green and full of life. And I realised that I had been wrong all my life. That actually there was a God, and actually He was reaching out to me. And I just felt as if my life was going to change. I knew this was the real thing because I felt the depression leave me. I was so happy, so excited. I knew I needed to tell somebody. I couldn't keep this to myself. I had to tell someone. And I remember thinking, I must tell my parents. And I got on a bus, went home, and got into the house. And I remember feeling very nervous and thinking my parents thought I was going mad. So as I started to tell them, my father turned to me and he said, what time did this happen to you? I said, well, it's 6:30. He said, well, son, he said, you know, I don't really believe in God, but he said, I did something I've never done before. He said, at 6:15, I was in my car, driving down the road, and I screamed out, please, God, help my son. And he looked at me and he said, this is, you know, amazing. And I looked at my mother, who was also filled up with tears, who said, son, I believe you. I believe what you're telling me. I can see it. I know you've changed. And we just all sort of sat there quietly, and things got better from there. I remember going back to the psychiatrist, and I think I'd had a meeting with him a week or a month before that. And as soon as I walked into the room, he looked at me and he said, Mr. Jones, what has happened to you? You look so different. Your face is bright and shiny. He said, I've never seen you looking like this before. I explained to him, and he started to fill up with tears. He was an old psychiatrist, and he said, I'm due to retire. And he said, I've been waiting all my life to see a miracle, he said, because actually I'm a Christian myself. And he said, I'm looking at a transformation in a person right in front of me. And I just saw this psychiatrist filling up as I was telling him what I experienced. And he said, now I can retire, seeing this wonderful miracle. And I knew that this was the real thing. This wasn't my imagination. As I'm 44 now, so this happened to me 8 years ago. But my life is now full of joy, fun, and hope for the future. And it's just been, you know, it's just a wonderful journey. You know, I'm just so much confident now. Other things have helped me. Coming to the life course was the first thing I did as a Christian, which has just helped me to learn more about the Bible. I've had good friends here who's helped me in the years. It's, you know, it's been a difficult journey at times, but it's been worth it, worth working at it, because it's made me such more confidence, happy, and I just look forward now to my life with excitement.